Kim. Hokai.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this live session. It is our second live session for COM 3705. If you missed our introductory class last week, let me just reintroduce myself. I'm Mrs. van Martine van der Walt-Ehlers. I'm module coordinator for COM 3705. As mentioned in the previous session, we will have several of these live sessions, and they will mostly then be in preparation for your assessments. So this is the first session for assignment 1. If you attend this session, there is no need for you to attend any of the other sessions for assignment 1. We will be going through exactly the same material each of these sessions. I'm just presenting several of these in order for as many possible students to actually be able to attend these sessions. They will also be, as I've mentioned there in the chat, I am recording the session. So once the session is over and the recording is available, I will upload it for you onto my UNISA. Okay, so as I explained, this is a preparation session for assignment 1, which is due on the 24th of August. There is a possibility of a possible extension. I still have not had any confirmation. It is unfortunately not up to me. I have requested a change in date, but I have not received any confirmation. So I am not even saying the possibility of a new date. I'm not saying what that date might be until I have that confirmation. The moment I have that confirmation, I will share it with you on my UNISA. But at this moment, because of just a very big administrative load on the side of assignment section, I would say that there won't be, unfortunately, an extension. Okay, so I am going to switch now to, I'm going to switch to the PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to switch off my camera now. And then I'm just going to share my screen. We will be going through the assignment brief step by step. And after I have done that, you are then more than welcome to ask me questions. So please just give me a moment and I am going to get on sharing the screen. Okay, you should be able to see my screen now. I just want to quickly bring up the additional notes that I have made. While I am sharing my screen, I'm unfortunately not able to see any hands. So please keep your questions until the end of the session. And then we can, then I can attend to any questions that you might have. Okay, so as we then start this session, I want to say from the outset that, let me just get this full screen for you. I just want to be upfront about what this session is and what it isn't. I'm not going to be handing you model answers. I'm not going to tell you exactly what you're going to write in each section. What I'm going to do is I'm going to work you through every single question of the brief. I'll point you back to exactly where in learning unit 4 and 7 and in the 4 prescribed readings you should be looking to assist you in answering the assignment questions. And we'll also flag the kind of, I want to say, the kind of thinking that each of the questions will be testing. We'll also spend some time on two things that sit outside of the content itself, and that is the technical presentation requirement. And because this assignment has specifically been designed to be AI resistant, we will be also looking at how to be using generative AI tools in an ethical manner. So the goal for me by the end of this session is that you leave knowing exactly what to do and where to go next, not what to copy down. Okay, so this is then what we are going to be doing in today's session. We'll start with a quick word on how to actually, as I've just mentioned, how to use this class. Then we'll move into what I consider the most important part for this assignment is the ethical use of generative AI. And directly after that, I will provide you with some practical guidance on finding and verifying your own sources, since 4 of the sub-questions require that of you. And then we'll walk through the brief itself, section by section, question by question. I'll close with the technical presentation requirements and a checklist of common pitfalls drawn from how these assignments are marked generally. So you know that where marks tend to be lost before you submit, not after. And then obviously we will have a Q&A for you where you can use the opportunity to ask me any questions that you might have. So this is now, once again, just to reiterate really what we want to do today. This is a map. I'm going to provide you a map of where you can look for each question, an explanation of the kind of reasoning that each question is testing, some direct guidance on how to search for and verify your own sources, and a checklist for the technical marks and the pitfalls that most commonly lose students' marks. I'm not going to provide you with a model answer. I am not even a partial one. This is not sort of a list of sources for you to copy into your essay. It's not a substitute for actually reading Learning Unit 4, Learning Unit 7, and your 4 prescribed articles. Remember, what you also need to do is you need to watch the videos for Learning Unit 4. Learning Unit 7's video will be available soon, as those videos deal not just with the content of those learning units as they are presented in the study guide, but also relate directly to your assignment. So there as well, you'll be able to find some very, very important information on how the learning units link to the assignment. And then, so it's not something that you can, this is really not something that you can use instead of doing your own research. If you leave the session and go straight to writing without having opened any of the learning material, it's going to be to your detriment. And then you really sort of misunderstood what this session is for. Okay, so when we look at assignment 1, just have a glance at it. So this is really just a quick structural recap so that we're all working from the same map. There is 50 marks assigned to this. And it's split across an introduction and a conclusion with 2.5 marks each, 4 10-mark theory sections, international news flow, framing theory, diplomacy, and soft power and public diplomacy, and then 5 marks for technical presentation. The detail that I want to flag now, because it shapes almost everything else in the session, is that 4 specific sub-questions, 1.2b, 1.3b, 1.4b, 1.5c, require you to locate and cite a real current source of your own. And that single design feature is why we're going to spend a bit of time today discussing the ethical use of AI and on source verification. So please keep that in mind as we go along. So why is this assignment designed the way it is? The brief states that several questions require you to identify and engage with real sources you have independently located, to retrieve and cite current examples, and to reflect on your own situated experience. And it says, students, please unmute your mute your microphones. I cannot continue when microphones are on. So yes, so what the brief says directly is that responses generated by AI tools will typically be unable to satisfy the requirements that we've set out for you. And that fabricated or hallucinated names, outdated statistics, and generic personal reflections are identifiable, and it will be treated as evidence of misconduct. And I'm not raising this to scare you. I'm raising it because it's the actual design logic of the assignment, and understanding it will make you a better and more a more efficient researcher for this specific task. So that's why we're spending some real time on artificial intelligence ethics before we open the brief's content questions. Okay, so using generative AI responsibly. Let's start with what's generally defensible. Using an AI tool to have a theory explained back to you in plain language, purely to check your own understanding, is a reasonable study aid, provided that you then go and verify that understanding against the actual study guide and the readings, rather than taking that explanation that AI has given you as gospel. Asking it to explain terminology that you're unsure of works the same way. Using it to brainstorm possible essay structures or the order in which you tackle your paragraphs, that's fine, as long as the structure that you actually build and the content that fills it is your own work. And using it as a grammar or language check on writing that is otherwise entirely your own is a legitimate and common use of these tools. But notice the pattern here. The AI is helping you think or checking your own work. It's not generating content that ends up in your assignment unmodified. And I really want to reiterate it, and I'm going to continue to part 2 of this now. We have tools that pick up artificial intelligence, especially the unethical use thereof. The thing is, after opening the 10th assignment that we mark, and we see almost exactly the same introduction, it's a slap in our faces as lecturers as well. So please, we are presenting these classes. We are giving you everything. You are at a 3rd year level. We expect you to be able to think and generate ideas and incorporate sources and write in an academic and use academic jargon in the correct way. That is something that you should be able to do already. So using AI in an unethical manner is going to cost you very, very dearly. We are becoming stricter and stricter. We are seeing students using smarter and smarter ways of bypassing it. But our AR checkers are also becoming smarter and smarter and catching that. So please, what we also are telling students now, and we will be putting up a notice, is if you are using any form of generative AI, we already have an AI declaration that you are supposed to sign. And there are 5 questions in that declaration that you need to complete honestly, where you say, okay, I used Grammarly to check some of my writing, for example. But if you are using any form of generative AI, you need to take screenshots of that. Because if we do find unethical use, we will question you about it. And then you can provide us what prompts were that you gave the AI, the sort of the large system. And then you can explain to us how you use it. And then we can say, okay, that's fine. That prompt is actually okay. So you need to be able to, if we question you, if we contact you and say, listen, we have picked up 98% AI use, and you can come back and say, but these were the prompts that I used. You can check it because obviously it keeps a record. ChatGPT, etc., all keeps a record. Then that's fine. Then we will go, okay, we understand. So please, I'm begging you to just be mindful of using AI in a responsible manner. What I keep telling students is this: when you are sitting in an interview for a job, you won't be able to sit in front of the panel who's interviewing you and go, and they ask you a question that is related to the field in which you want a job, that is most likely then related to the field in which you studied. You won't be able to go, okay, wait, I want to quickly sorry, I need to check something on my phone. You can't open chat or Claude or whatever and quickly type in the question and then pretend that you are attending to a crisis on your phone. You need to be able to think independently. You need to be able to understand the work. We want to enable you to go out in the field and be able to do your work. So please, yes, I think almost all of your lecturers will be sort of saying this same story. We all just want you to do as well as possible, but do it in a responsible and an ethical and in a way. So part 2, let's look at what you should not be doing. Do not ask an AI tool to find or generate a real news article, headline, or diplomatic development for you. This is precisely where these tools are least reliable. And they will often fabricate something plausible sounding rather than admit that they don't have live access to verify it. Do not ask AI to write your reflection on your own situated experience. By definition, it does not have your experience. We are asking you about your own experience. So anything it produces is generic filler. And we are looking for that generic filler. Because after we see there are 480 students, we are all marking at least 120 papers. We are going to pick up, look at this. There are 50 students who had exactly the same situated experience, because that is what AI does. It is just replicating, it's just building, and it's just taking information. So don't copy any AI-generated citation into your reference list without independently verifying it yourself. Check that the source exists at that URL with that content. A citation that looks correctly formatted is not as the same as a citation that is real. Don't submit AI-generated analysis or arguments as your own without substantially reworking it in your own words and thinking. Each of these isn't just risky. It's exactly the failure mode this assignment was built to expose. Okay, then just linking to that, we are seeing a lot of fabricated sources. And I want to explain to you how we know that fabricated sources are checkable. And I want to just clarify that we are checking your sources. And we want you to know this because it should change how you approach your own research, not just how you avoid getting caught. A real citation survives a click. Publication, author, date, and headline that a mark can me, myself, or any of my markers can actually go, not markers, the rest of the team can go and find exactly as described. Fabricated one doesn't. It'll have an invented headline, a wrong date, or a URL that leads nowhere. That's immediately visible in a less than 2-minute check. And we are doing exactly that check on your assignment. The standard being applied is verifiability, not prestige. A short wire report or from a smaller, less glamorous outlet that is correctly and honestly cited earns full marks for the sub-question. Polished looking but invented citation will not matter how convincing it reads. So the practical lesson is don't try to impress us with a source, but rather try to give us the right one. Okay, then let's just move on to finding your own sources. Here are some practical transferable search techniques, since this skill matters far more than just this particular assignment. Start specific. Search the actual event and not the theory. Searching for the SA-US tariff dispute plus a rough date range will get you far further than searching for abstract phrases like news flow imbalance. Second, vary your source type deliberately, especially for 1.2b. You need one piece from a global wire agency like Reuters, AP, Bloomberg, and one from an African outlet, and you'll get much better results searching for these as two separate, targeted searches rather than one combined one. Check the date against what the question is actually asking. 1.4b specifically wants a development that occurred since the stimulus article. So if what you find predates that, it simply doesn't satisfy the requirement, however good the source is. And finally, read past the headline. You need the actual content, the frame, the quote, the specific detail to do the comparison or illustration the question is asking you to build. Before you cite it, here is a verification checklist, and you can use this slide. Can you personally open the article at the URL you're about to cite? Does the publication, author, and date you're about to write down match what's genuinely on that page? Is the article actually about the SA-US tariff dispute specifically, not a different, similar sounding story that came up in your search? Have you recorded the full citation details right now while the page is open in front of you? Because you will not remember the exact URL and the date later, and going back to find it again will waste your time. And finally, does the source actually do the analytical work the question is asking for? Or have you just found a source that happens to exist without it actually helping your argument? The last one is where you will most often lose marks, even with a perfectly real citation. Real but unused, or real but not analyzed. Okay, so now we get to the meat of the assignment. For the introduction, it is worth 2.5 marks, and you need to ask yourself 3 things as you draft it. Have you actually contextualized the dispute in your own words, or have you repeated the dispute? Just repeated the stimulus article back at the reader. Have you named the specific concepts from Learning Unit 4 and 7 that your essay is going to use? Not vaguely gestured at communication theory, but named the actual theories. And does your introduction tell the reader how your essay is structured, not just what topic it's about? For where to look, revisit Learning Unit 4, Section 4.1 on news as a commodity, and Learning Unit 7, Section 7.1 on migration, diplomacy, and tourism as forms of international communication. That's the framing language your introduction should be drawing on, not a summary of the article itself. Then we look at 1.2. Oh, sorry. A, and here we are looking at the concept and theoretical frameworks. This is for 3 marks, and it asks for the concept of international news flow plus the theoretical frameworks explaining its direction. Test yourself here. Can you define international news flow in a single sentence in your own words without looking it up? Can you name and explain what a theory of news flow direction actually predicts? Not just recite its name, but say what it means for how news actually moves between countries. And are you confident that you can explain out loud the difference between world systems theory and dependency theory? If you hesitated on that last one, that's exactly the confusion that we will flag. So go back to Learning Unit 4, sections 4.2, 4.2.1 through 4.2.3, and make sure that you can articulate the distinction and not just recognize those two names. Then 1.2b and c, together they are worth 7 marks. For B, have you actually found 2 real current separately sourced articles, one from a global wire agency, one from an African outlet, and not simply relied on the stimulus article itself, dressed up as your comparison? And are you comparing how each one frames the story rather than just summarizing each in turn without drawing the comparison out explicitly? For C, the newsworthiness factor, have you picked specific factors and shown with real specificity how Grassland, Orgwo, and Vago support them? The question explicitly wants those 2 readings tied in, not Learning Unit 4's factors listed on their own. So revisit Learning Unit 4, section 4.3.1 for the factors themselves, and then go back to slides 9 and 10 of the session for how to actually go and find and verify the 2 real articles that Part B needs. So for 1.3.A, we are looking at framing theory and its relevance. Check yourself. Can you define a media frame properly without just substituting the word bias? Framing is a more precise concept than bias. And Marcus, we as your markers and as the lecturing team, we know the difference between a bias and a frame. Can you as a student explain why framing choices are rarely neutral? What actually shapes a reporter's or an outlet's framing decision? And have you connected framing specifically to international news rather than describing media framing to international news, or describing media framing in general terms that can apply to any news story, anywhere? Go back to Learning Unit 4, section 4.2.4 for the theory itself here, and look again at the Ethiopian elections case study in the study guide, not for content to lift, but as a model of how a theoretical comparison like this gets built and structured. 1.3b and c, here we looked at conflict versus the developmental frame and its consequences. Here is this for 7 marks combined. B is the single highest value sub-question, 1.3b, in this whole section at 5 marks on its own. So check, have you found a real headline or extract that clearly illustrates each of the 2 frames, conflict and economic or developmental? And have you accidentally illustrated the same frame twice from 2 different articles? Is that illustrative material properly cited, both in the body of your text and in your list of sources consulted, both, not just one? And for part C, are you actually discussing a consequence of the framing pattern, what it does, who it affects, and what impression it creates, rather than simply restating what the 2 frames are, which you've already covered in part B? For C specifically, Learning Unit 4's case study 4.3, the WTO Congress analysis, is a useful model for the kind of consequence this question wants you to be thinking about. 1.4a, defining diplomacy and its subforms. This is for 4 marks. Here you will be defining diplomacy and its subforms, and you must ask yourself, can you define diplomacy itself cleanly before you even get into the 3 subforms? Can you distinguish formal or secret diplomacy, closed door diplomacy, and open diplomacy from each other? Not just list all 3, but say specifically what makes each one different from the others. Have you matched the specific moment from the stimulus article to one of these subforms and explained why it fits there, rather than just asserting that it does? This is entirely in Learning Unit 7, section 7.4, right at the start of the diplomacy material. The definitions themselves are there. Matching them to the article's specific events is the analytical work that you will need to do here yourself. Then we move on to 1.4b and c. So this is for 6 marks combined. For B, can you explain why formal or closed-door channels are considered more appropriate for sensitive bilateral disputes? What do they actually protect the negotiations from? And critically, Have you found a real dated development in the dispute that comes after the stimulus article, not before it, and not simply restating what the article already told you? That date check matters enormously here, students. For C, are you using specific named findings from Mutisia, Maluki, and Adar's 2024 study, actual statistics or claims from that paper, rather than a general impression of the reading was about digital diplomacy? Go back to Learning Unit 7, Section 7.4 for the reasoning behind B, and go back to that particular prescribed article for C, not a summary of it from memory. And then we move on to 1.5. So A and B deals with soft versus hard power and public and media diplomacy. Here we have the two questions combined for 6 marks. For A, you must ask yourself, have you classified the tariffs correctly as an exercise of hard or soft power? And can you actually justify the classification rather than just asserting it? A sharper answer also has something worth saying about the channel the announcement used, social media versus its actual content. Think about whether those two things point in the same direction or not. For B, can you distinguish public diplomacy from media diplomacy? These are related but genuinely different concepts in Learning Unit 7, and treating them as interchangeable is a common way to lose marks here. Both of these are directly in Learning Unit 7, Section 7.4. The definitions are there. The application to this specific dispute and any critical observation about the channel versus content mismatch is part of what you need to build yourself in your answer. 1.5C deals with South Africa's public diplomacy and soft power strategy. This is for 4 marks, and it's the last of the 4 independent research sub-questions. Check, are you using Achieng, Kiamba, and Kagwanya's actual argument, their case for dialogue-based two-way public diplomacy, or have you just cited their names without engaging with what they actually claim? Have you found a real current named example of South African public diplomacy, a specific statement, campaign, or diplomatic visit, not a vague gesture at South Africa's diplomatic efforts? And have you explained why that example illustrates the reading's argument, rather than just describing the example on its own and leaving the connection implicit? Go back to the Achieng et al. Article directly for the argument and to your own current search, using the same search and verification approach from those slides that we discussed earlier. It was slide 9 and 10, to find this specific named example. Then your conclusion, once again for 2.5 marks, and it's the last content section. Here you will ask yourself, am I actually synthesizing across both learning units, drawing a genuine connection between the international news flow material and the diplomacy and soft power material? Or am I just summarizing one section at a time, back to back? Ask yourself, did I introduce any genuinely new material here that really should have been argued early in the essay? Because a conclusion should never include any new material. And importantly, does your conclusion actually sound different from your introduction? Yes, they can echo each other in a certain way, but they should sound different. They shouldn't just restate the same framing sentence twice. There's nothing new to go and look up for this section. It draws entirely on the material that you've already built for 1.2 through to 1.5. So treat it as a genuine synthesis task and not a fresh research task. Now we get to the technical presentation requirements. And here you are looking at 5 marks. These are 5 marks that you can earn for free. Obviously, from these 5 marks, we are also taking deductions for things like a completed AI, the AI declaration that you need to sign. If you did not include it, you will lose all 5 marks for technical presentation. If you've included the incorrect declaration, so you've taken it from previous years, that was not an AI declaration, you will also not receive your marks. If it is an incomplete declaration, there will be marks subtracted. And then we are also looking at the technical presentation requirements. So for formatting, we are looking at 12-point font, 1.5 line spacing, 2.5 centimeter margins on all slides, on all sides, that should read. And it can be really any any font that you choose. Structure, very important. You should have your title page followed by your declaration. There should always be a table of contents. If you don't have a table of contents, you will lose 2.5 marks. And you should have clearly numbered subsections. You will be making up sort of your own names for all of the subsections. So we don't expect you here to write an essay. You can have your numbered subsections. And then you will have a list of sources consulted. Referencing, we are expecting UNISA's Harvard style that is applied consistently and across the board. You should reference in text, and all your references should appear in your list of sources consulted. Your independent sources as well should be referenced both in text, and they should appear in your list of sources consulted, and they should be referenced correctly. All of the referencing techniques are available in tutorial letter 301. There is no need for you to lose any marks here. As I've mentioned, it explains to you exactly how you reference journal articles, how you reference books, how you reference news reports, either from a hard copy of a newspaper or from an online news source. Okay, then we can now move on to just a very quick look at some common pitfalls and where we've seen students losing marks most often. So we've drawn this list from the assignments that we've marked in semester 1. So this is really sort of a checklist against, you can use this as a checklist against your own draft before you submit it. And you can work through this. So naming a theory, but not explaining what it predicts. So linked to this, conflating world systems theory and dependency theory, using a comparing tone instead of mechanism, illustrating the same frame twice instead of both frames once each, treating public diplomacy and media diplomacy as interchangeable, a real citation that appears in text but not in the reference list, or vice versa, a conclusion that restates the introduction instead of synthesizing the essay. Remember, and then you'll see that I've provided you a little explanation of each of those little checks there. So the theory, don't just name it. Conflating world system theory, they obviously look at different things. Go beyond tone. Analyze how and why the frame works in each article. Find a clear example from each frame from your sources. Public diplomacy and media diplomacy, explain why they are distinct and why that distinction is important. Every in-text citation must have a matching reference list entry. They must be correct. They must not be hallucinated by AI. And then your conclusion, it's a synthesis. You are bringing your arguments together. So your conclusion should be written with insight. It shouldn't be just repetition, and it shouldn't introduce any new information. And here I've done a little pre-submission checklist for you. If necessary, I will add it as I think I'll do it in any case. I'll add it for you as a little Word document under additional resources. And then you can just use this as your own little checklist. Did you name every theory? Can you explain it in 1 or 2 sentences? Is every source that you've cited real? Have you opened it and have you verified it? For those particular subsections, do they each cite a source that you found yourself and not just the stimulus article? Every citation should appear both in text and in your list of sources consulted. Your conclusion should add synthesis. It shouldn't be a repetition of your introduction. Font, spacing, margins, numbering, referencing style, all should match your brief. And now it is over to you in more senses, more than one sense. The reading, the searching, the writing, that is all yours to do. That's the point of this particular assignment. It's not a formality. We've designed the assignment specifically to engage you. We've used a relevant and interesting example. We want you to be stimulated by what we have provided you and what you must do in this particular assignment. So we want you to engage deeply, read with a specific purpose in mind, think critically about what you are reading, do your independent research, find sources, evaluate them, verify whether they're real. Write with clarity. build a strong original argument. Once again, use AI in a responsible manner. Don't let it write your assignment for you. Writing and reading are two of the most important skills you will ever have. So we want to really sort of, you must realize the importance of it. And we are giving you these assignments to test your writing as well, not just your understanding. We don't just want you to regurgitate what you are reading. We want to see that you can make an argument, an original argument, and be able to write it down and then show your understanding, synthesize your ideas, make them your own. This is really, the assignment is the opportunity. This assignment and your summative assessment, your assignment 3, is the opportunity where we are giving you the chance to demonstrate what you have learned. Do the work, trust the process, make it excellent. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now, and I'm going to open it up for you. You are more than welcome now to either raise your hand and I can call on you. You can then unmute your microphone. Otherwise, you can type in the chat and I can go through those chats. Yes, Kelsey, I see your hand is up. You can unmute and then you can, you are more than welcome to ask your question.
Hi, ma'am. I just want to clarify on the academic declaration of honesty. Is there a template in the tutorial later or something that we can access to use so that we have the most recent one?
Yes, I will upload that now under additional resources. I will also paste it as a separate, I will add it to a separate announcement now, once the session is finalized. So it is the new AI honesty declaration. But I
Thank you,
will
ma'am.
upload that now. Okay. And then also I see another hand. I'm just seeing LM. So you are more than welcome to also go ahead. Nsuku. Mbatsane, you can unmute and continue. Okay. Otherwise, Mpendulo, you can go ahead.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon.
When you say the learning unit content will be uploaded soon, how soon?
Well, you don't need, you can obviously do your assignment without the videos, but it will be uploaded either tomorrow or on Monday. It is, as I've said, it is a summary of the learning unit, and then I'm just also relating it to the content of assignment 1 for you. So I'm just doing a little bit of the work for you, but it will be up. But the learning unit, obviously the study guide is on is available under additional resources. Remember, the video itself of the 2 learning units is not enough to pass the assignment. So the content in that is not enough. You have access to the study units. They're in the study guide and it's uploaded under additional resources. It was discussed in last week's class. So you can find the study guide under additional resources on My UNISA.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions at this moment? I'm just going to go scroll through here. We have a very large class. I'm very happy with that. I see there are some questions about the WhatsApp group. You are more than welcome to open your own WhatsApp group, but due to the POPI Act, I've also explained that in the introductory session, as a lecturer, I'm not opening a WhatsApp group. There's just too many risks involved with that. But you are more than welcome to open one for yourself, to chat with each other as well. Yes, the class recording will be uploaded, Tegofatso, as soon as it is available on Teams. I will upload it to YouTube. Once it's uploaded on YouTube, then I can upload it on My UNISA. I'm not seeing any other hands at this particular moment. You'll see that this working through the slideshow has taken about 40 minutes. I will update, I will post an announcement for the remainder of the assignment 1 preparation sessions today. And then you are more than welcome to attend those, but you can wait for about 40 minutes and then pop in to join the question and answer session. So that you don't necessarily need to listen to the whole PowerPoint presentation again. Otherwise, you are more than welcome to just write me an email. Please do not use the quick note question at the top of My UNISA. As lecturers, we really do not access that regularly. So your best bet is to just send an email if you have any question regarding the content. If I have any updated news on a possible extension, I will communicate that to you via the announcements on My UNISA. Everything else that is relevant to this assignment as well, I will update you via My UNISA. And then, yes, I'm so very, very happy that I've had so many students joining today. I will, for the purpose of the summative assessment, I know that several of you do struggle to attend some of these earlier sessions. So I will do my utmost best to have some of these sessions a bit later as well. So early evening, when more of you are probably able to attend. So yes, I really do appreciate you joining me today. And best of luck with your assignment preparation. As I've said, please do contact me, contact the rest of the lecturing team. And yes, enjoy working on this assignment. Personally, it was a lot of fun to set this assignment. And as I've said, we really want to engage you and not just set a boring assessment. We want you to be able to think critically about what's going on. This is international communication. There's so much happening in terms of international communication. So we want to make it as relevant and as interesting for you. So I trust that you will find the assignment stimulating. And yes, as I said, you can more than welcome to join the sessions that we will have next week again if you feel the need to. As things are available, I will upload it on My UNISA. Please have, it's getting warmer again for those of you who are up in the northern parts of the country where it has been absolutely freezing. For those of you who are still very cold, please stay warm. Have a lovely rest of the week. It's almost weekend. And then we'll speak again soon. Thank you very much for joining me today, students.